On this episode, this Lomandra teaches us how to identify a site that's been sprayed with herbicide. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. Now recently, Ben, who's kindly filming again for us today, has been sharing some of his natural areas management, bushland management, landscape management skills with me to teach me a little bit more about, I suppose, how to identify when you're out on site, you see an area and you're trying to figure out how it's being managed from a weed point of view. Because, I know a bit about this, but I don't have detailed first-hand experience in it. So Ben's been showing me around a whole bunch of different sites and helping me to try and interpret what's going on those particular sites. And so we're out here today at this lovely, lovely constructed waterway, lovely plants around the edge. It's a really nice spot to be. There's some really beautiful sections down towards that end. But Ben was showing me a few things about what we can interpret from weed control strategies here that I think are quite relevant to our work in stormwater management, management of stormwater treatment assets like bioretention systems. So I'm going to try and talk that through for you today. So what we've got here, we can see along the edges, there are a bunch of Lomandras all the way along here, and some of them are in better health than others. This one over here, it's not in bad condition. It's a little bit browned off on the tips. It's not completely happy, but it's not too stressed out. And then if we come over here, we can see these few Lomandras here that are really doing it tough. Lots of foliage has died back over here. And we can also see a vine that was presumably a weed species over the top. And what we think has happened here is that whoever is managing this area has quite rightly wanted to target this vine. And so they appear to have sprayed it. Now they might have used a selective chemical that really goes after the vine itself, but the Lomandras in the process, somehow maybe it's, there could be a few reasons for that. I'm not going to go straight into that because I'll probably make a bit of a mistake, as Ben nods at me and is like, yep, Jack, you don't quite know enough yet. But in the process, the Lomandras have got burnt. So there's a bit of a relationship going on here where overspray, Lomandras, when they get stressed out from being sprayed, you can see them brown off. And so what's really interesting is we're going to take a walk up here and I'm going to show you something that happens in a slightly more subtle case. So here it looks like this plant's literally been sprayed directly, but we're going to walk up and look at what's happening with the edging. So if we look over on down here, we can see that right along the edge of this area, the management strategy is to spray the grass. So the grass doesn't get into the creek area. There's a distinct line, so really commonly they're coming along spraying that out. And what we think as we walk along here is that all these Lomandras that we see that are a little bit browned off, like this one here, so again, quite green down low, but again, the tips of it, they're all browning off. It's not totally happy. This is likely to be happening from overspray. So they're coming in, they're spraying the edge, the Lomandra's getting a little bit of it, and this slight browning off is a sign of a bit of stress, a bit of chemical being used in there. So we walk right the way along, it happens again. You can see another browned off one, another one here. We keep going, and I want to show you something up the end that is kind of the exception to this, the exception that proves the rule. So we walk along, the browned off again, that one's not so bad, a little bit browned off on the tips, a little bit browned off on the tips, and we get to here where the spraying edge turns a corner and comes away from the Lomandras and up the side here. We come back to these last two Lomandras and they're beautifully green, very little dieback on the ends. Like even a happy Lomandra is occasionally going to have a browned off end on it, but much less brown on these two Lomandras here. And so it's a really clear example of what happens when there's a bit of herbicide being chucked around. So the relevance I think this has to stormwater treatment assets is often because we're still coming to grips with how we maintain, how we manage these assets. Councils are just getting their maintenance programs up and going in the last couple of years. We're having assets that might be getting a bit of maintenance incidentally, so the stormwater treatment asset is in the park, and so maybe the maintenance crew from the park is doing a little bit of work in there, and we see assets change over time. And sometimes we see these typologies where there might be a Lomandra here and then a Lomandra a few meters away, and they're a bit browned off and there's nothing growing in between. I think this little lesson can teach us a little bit about maybe how to identify what might be going on there. So I think there's a typology that we can look for when we see potentially bare earth, like along the edge of the spraying barrier here, and then mature lomandras that are browning off a bit on their tips or other species, that might be a typology for, okay, the maintenance that's happening here incidentally is probably a bunch of spraying going on, and there might be overspray happening, and that can help to inform us. When we come out to an asset that we, maybe we're transitioning from that, it's been getting incidental maintenance to we're about to put it onto a proper maintenance program, that can teach us a little bit about the history of the asset and then inform what we do in the future. So we might be looking at that and going, okay, the lomandra's doing okay, but you know, it seems really barren in between them. What's going on? How does that inform what I do next? Oh, okay, there've been herbicides applied here. Let's figure out what to do next from there. So for me, it's really useful to be able to see this, to be able to come to grips with and start to process what's going on there. So look, that's it for this episode. I hope that you found that interesting and useful. If you want to find out more about what we do at Ideanthro, there's a few ways you can find us. You can find us online at ideanthro.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Ideanthro. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram. Sweet. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.